Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really fascinating situation for you today.
Hmm.
A pretty high stakes exchange in Toronto. It's between U.S. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Right, Crockett and Carney, that's quite the pairing.
Yeah. Think of it as a sharp debate, really zeroing in on some key things: trade, Canadian sovereignty, and, well, how Canada plans to stay economically strong facing these big U.S. tariffs.
And our goal here is to kind of distill what really happened, right?
Mm.
Understand the core issue.
Exactly. What's the significance? And what's compelling right away is just the intensity.
Yeah, our sources describe it as a real collision of viewpoints,
Yeah.
and it's set against, well, very real economic impacts and this,
Yeah.
this strong sense of Canadian identity.
Totally. We're looking at excerpts from a detailed report on this showdown. It apparently happened at both the Canada Speech Studio and the CBC Studio in Toronto.
And that setting, the CBC studio, sounds like it really added something.
It does. Picture it. You've got the big maple leaf emblem, beautiful indigenous artwork, beadwork, carvings, celebrating First Nations, Métis, Inuit heritage, really powerful symbols.
Right, symbols of Canada.
But then the contrast, there's a screen right there showing the hard numbers from Trump's 25% tariffs. Autos, energy.
The TSX down 9%.
Yeah, TSX down 9%. And get this, 20,000 auto sector jobs lost just in Ontario. Displayed right there.
Wow, that's stark. And the audience.
A real mix. Indigenous elders, Asian Canadian professional, European immigrants, like a snapshot of modern Canada watching this unfold.
So you have these symbols of national pride right next to the economic pain. That really signals the complexity, doesn't it?
It really does. And then the key players themselves. Carney, described as composed, the seasoned economic guy.
A little thinker type.
Right. And Crockett,
Mm.
confident, maybe even assertive, really pushing the America First angle.
You could almost feel the tension just from that description. Different energies.
Definitely. The contrast in how they're described sort of hints at the clash to come,
For sure. And it leads right into that opening conflict. Crockett apparently just came out swinging.
Yeah, questioning Canada's Buy Beaver campaign, calling it ineffective.
Okay, a direct critique.
And then she goes further, suggests Canada should maybe think about becoming the 51st state.
Whoa. Okay, that's not subtle.
Not at all. Pretty provocative way to kick things off.
Well, that immediately throws sovereignty right onto the table, doesn't it? It forces Carney to respond directly about Canada's identity, its independence.
Oh, he did.
Oh, yeah. The report says a firm rejection, emphasizing Canada's distinct character, its commitment to its own people.
Yeah.
It really set the tone for his whole argument.
Okay, so let's dive deeper. Starting with the tariffs, the economic hit. Crockett's hammering this point.
Seems like it. Saying Trump's tariffs are a necessary wake-up call.
And using those numbers,
Hmm.
the TSX drop, the Ontario job losses.
Yeah, exactly. Basically saying, look, this is real. It's happening. Canada needs to face it. It's one way to frame the situation, making her case for maybe a different path.
But Carney wasn't just, ignoring the problems.
No, not according to the sources. He acknowledged the challenges, definitely, but then pivoted to Canada's response.
Which was?
A big one, a $10 billion investment plan
$10 billion. For what?
to help the industries hit by the tariffs, retrain workers who lost jobs, and, this is key, actively pivot to new markets, like the EU and Japan.
Ah, okay. So not just defense, but offense, too. Looking for other partners.
Precisely. It suggests a strategy that's about more than just reacting. It's about trying to shape a more diverse economic future for Canada. The size of the investment shows they're serious.
And this is where it gets really personal, right?
Right.
The report mentions Susan Harper.
Yes, an Indigenous retiree from Windsor. A very powerful moment, it sounds like.
Her son lost his job at an auto plant because of the tariffs.
That's right. And she apparently stood up and asked Crockett about it directly.
Wow. That takes the abstract economic talk and makes it incredibly human, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It forces everyone to confront the actual, human cost of these trade policies. You can't just talk numbers anymore.
How did Crockett handle that?
Well, the report suggests it was maybe a bit of a deflection, talking about, the tough realities of global trade, how America needs to protect its own workers first.
Mm-hmm. Probably not the answer Susan Harper was looking for.
Likely not. But it does reflect a certain viewpoint, prioritizing national interest, even with consequences elsewhere.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Sovereignty, national identity. Crockett really pushed on this.
She did, pointing out that, 75% of Canada's exports go to the U.S.?
Right. Her argument being that Canada's economy is basically tethered to the U.S.
And from there, she kind of dismissed Canadian sovereignty as just a nice story, because of that economic reliance.
That's a pretty direct hit at Canada's whole sense of self.
It really is. It's that realist view, right?
Yeah.
Economic power dictates real autonomy. She's challenging Canada's self-image head-on.
But Carney pushed back hard.
Very hard, it seems. The report describes a passionate defense, talking about Canada as a multicultural nation, its history of choosing freedom, its unique identity shaped by Indigenous peoples, by immigrants.
And he used the art in the studio.
Yeah, pointed to the Indigenous artwork as a symbol of that distinctness. He's grounding sovereignty in something much deeper than just like economic stats.
Connecting it to culture, history, values.
Exactly, a much broader context.
And the audience, how did they react to the 51st state idea?
They did an immediate poll, apparently. 85% said no way.
85%.
Yeah, and the reaction was described as really enthusiastic. So a pretty clear message from the Canadians in the room about their own identity.
That poll result is a strong counter, isn't it? Shows that sentiment is real.
Definitely. Undercuts Crockett's nice storyline quite effectively.
Okay, economic strategy. Crockett's criticism was no real plan from Canada.
Pretty much. Especially aimed at this Green Canada initiative. She called it buzzwords and pipe dreams.
Empty talk while jobs are being lost now.
That was her angle. Questioning the practicality, the short-term results. It's that tension, right? Long-term Greeno goals versus immediate economic pain.
But Carney came prepared on this.
Seems so. He detailed a $15 billion investment.
$15 billion for the green stuff.
Yeah. Clean energy projects, but also retraining programs linked to that, and those new trade partnerships he mentioned, EU, Japan. He's trying to paint a picture of a future Canada that's both green and economically diverse.
So presenting Green Canada not just as environmentalism, but as a core economic strategy.
Exactly. Trying to show it's practical, multifaceted, not just aspirational talk.
And then something actually happened during the broadcast. A deal announced.
Yeah, this is pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Canada announced a $5 billion trade agreement with Japan. Right then.
During the debate. Seriously.
Apparently so. Focused on critical minerals. And Carney hinted an EU deal was coming soon, too.
Wow. Talk about timing. That's a very tangible way to counter the no strategy claim.
It really is. Moves it from rhetoric to reality.
Yeah.
Right there on screen, essentially. Real-time validation.
And the report mentions someone in the audience, David Chen, an engineer.
Yes, a Chinese-Canadian engineer. He apparently saw Carney's long-term focus as actual leadership.
Interesting. So that announcement landed well with some people, it seems.
It provides a different perspective, yeah. Seeing value in that long-term planning, even amid current troubles.
Okay, things got personal, didn't they? Leadership styles.
Oh, yeah. Crockett apparently didn't hold back. Called Carney all theory, no spine.
Ooh.
Said he wasn't tough enough to face Trump, even called him a banker who hides behind spreadsheets and a professor playing dress-up.
Wow, those are direct personal shots trying to undermine his credibility.
That's usually the tactic, right? Frame the opponent as lacking the right stuff for leadership. Too academic, not tough enough.
And Carney's response? Did he stay calm?
Report says he did. Maintained composure. He referenced his time leading the Bank of England during the global financial crisis.
Right, using his experience.
Yeah, and stressed that he listens to workers, to communities.
Yeah.
Trying to project that calm, experienced leadership image, contrasting with the attacks.
Countering the out-of-touch narrative by highlighting connection.
Exactly.
And David Chen spoke up again here.
He did. Shared a personal story about how Carney's innovation fund actually saved his tech company in Calgary.
So a direct rebuttal to Crockett saying Carney was out of touch from someone in the audience.
Yeah, those personal testimonies seem to have been really impactful. Real-world evidence countering her claims. Carries a lot of weight.
Then Crockett tried another angle, division within Canada.
Bringing up Quebec separation history, current frustrations in Alberta with Ottawa.
Trying to suggest Canada isn't unified enough to stand firm?
That seems to be the implication. If you're divided internally, how can you present a strong front externally?
How did Carney handle that?
Push back strongly again. Reasserted Canadian unity, gave examples from across the country.
And he mentioned the Buy Beaver campaign again?
Yeah, highlighted that it was being led by both Indigenous and immigrant communities.
Yeah.
Using it as an example of unity and diversity.
Actively countering the idea of a fractured Canada.
Right, reinforcing the image of a cohesive nation pulling together.
And then another announcement during the broadcast. This is wild.
It sounds like it was quite the dynamic event. Yes, a $5 billion pledge announced.
From who?
From Indigenous and immigrant-owned businesses, pledging to invest in Canadian domestic industries.
Wow. So right after Crockett talks about division, there's this major pledge demonstrating unity and domestic support.
Talk about a powerful, tangible counter-narrative, real-time demonstration of the very unity Carney was talking about.
Okay, worst case scenario time. Crockett raised the stakes. 50% tariffs.
Yeah, from both the U.S. and China. That's a hypothetical, but a scary one.
A potential double whammy designed to highlight Canada's vulnerability.
Exactly. A significant escalation to underscore the risks Canada faces.
But Carney didn't flinch.
Remained resolute, according to the report. Talked up Canada's resilience, the Green Canada Plan again, the new trade deals, national unity.
He basically doubled down on his strategy.
Pretty much. And he added a little reminder, too. Pointed out that the U.S. relies on Canada for, what, 70% of its uranium?
70%. And oil, too.
Yeah, 20% of U.S. oil. A subtle reminder that it's not a one-way street. There's interdependence. Canada has leverage, too.
Instilling confidence, highlighting strength.
Right. And then Laura Bennett, the CBC moderator, chimed in.
Yeah, with more news. The EU apparently condemned Trump's tariffs and backed Canada's trade efforts.
Okay, so international support is rolling in, too. That definitely strengthens Canada's hand.
Makes it seem less like Canada standing alone, bolsters Carney's strategy of diversification.
For sure. Adds another layer of validation.
Which brings us to the end. Crockett's exit, described as dramatic.
Very. Visibly frustrated, a few final sharp comments, and then she just walked off.
Ripping off her microphone.
Apparently so. A very emphatic departure. Signaled she wasn't getting through, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe frustration that her arguments didn't land. And Carney's final word.
Calm, inspiring, sticking to his themes. Action, unity, resilience.
And he looked right at the camera.
Yes, a direct address. Canada doesn't need threats. We need action and unity. We're Canada. Diverse, resilient, and unbowed. Canada's open for trade, not takeover.
That's a strong closing statement. Deliberate, powerful message.
Clearly meant to resonate, reinforce that sense of resolve.
And the report notes Carney thanked Susan and David personally afterwards.
While Crockett was apparently seen standing alone in the hallway. A small detail, but it paints a picture.
Yeah, highlights the different connections made or not made.
Contrasting receptions for sure. Shows who seem to connect more with the people there.
And the media reaction afterwards. Mostly positive for Carney.
Overwhelmingly, it sounds like. Headlines about Canada's strength, Carney's leadership, the defiant message. It suggests his approach worked, not just in the room, but more broadly.
That perception of a successful defense, a moment of national resolve.
Exactly.
So let's wrap this up. Big takeaways for you, the listener. It really feels like, well, Canada put up a strong, articulate defense, sovereignty, economic strategy.
Definitely. And that theme of national unity, drawing strength from diversity, indigenous communities, immigrants, that came through loud and clear.
And it seems like this whole confrontation maybe pushed Canada faster towards that pivot. Clean energy, global trade deals, a way to handle outside pressure.
Precisely. It showcases a proactive, multi-layered response. Not just economic diversification, but leveraging social and cultural strengths too.
What about those aha moments for you, things that really stood out?
Well, the timing of that Japan trade deal announcement was pretty incredible, right in the middle of it all.
Yeah, that was something. For me, also hearing directly from Susan and David made it so much more real.
Absolutely. Grounded the whole thing in human terms.
Yeah.
And, the sheer drama of the contrasting styles, ending with Crockett walking out.
Can't forget that. So, for you listening, we hope this deep dive gave you a good, solid understanding of what was a pretty major event.
Yeah, it offers real insights into trade talks, national identity under pressure, and just different ways leaders handle these high-stakes moments.
And finally, something to chew on. What are the long-term ripples from this for the U.S.-Canada relationship, for Canada's place in the world?
Right. And what does it tell us about trade and national identity going forward in this super interconnected world we're in? It's a big questions to ponder.